So we're
What do
just
you think
waiting on
of
them to start.
what do you think of the league so far this year? You've kind of been
Um,
you were kind of the hero of the league the first 4 or 5 weeks.
yeah, I did okay. I didn't do any worse than 2 points, which is really good. But yeah, the league's pretty good. I'm excited that they're doing this every year. So we'll see. Hopefully Iris isn't too nervous today.
Yeah.
She's
Do you
got some
do you know her from
definite
St. Louis?
duties. What'd you say?
Do you know her from St. Louis? Or
Yeah. Her sister. Yeah, my dad knew her when she was like 5 years old.
oh yeah,
Yeah. So now she's very good, and she's playing for the Missouri team. So as long as she's not nervous, she should do well. She always plays really strong.
all right. Yeah, I'm hoping that she'll stick on the team next year too, and then
Mm-hmm.
uh, we'll have a lot more depth. You know, a couple options for each board. So.
Yeah. So I think we had how many total people? Was it like 10 or so?
Yeah, we had Roman, Julian, and then my plan for board 2 was Ken and Doug, and then Julian could do 1 or 2, I guess, and then you and Nathaniel, and then now Asish and Iris. So we'd have a couple options for each board. Yeah. So now right now Minnesota's in first with 5. We've got 4. And the only team with 3 match points is Illinois.
Oh, okay.
And we're ahead of them by 10 game points.
So we just need to have, what is that? 4.5 points today, and we would beat the next team in tie breaks.
Yeah. So you guys beat Illinois in week 1. That was where you won 12.5 to 3.5. So.
Or we'd have to have 6.5 to clinch the tie break for. So I mean, they just need to win or barely lose. We just can't get blown out today.
Right. Yeah.
And then we've got a playoff spot. That's nice.
Yeah, it's pretty good after just our second season. We make it to the playoffs.
Right. Well, we've got some action on board 1. French defense. They've got a King's Indian attack. The question is, will he... Oh, okay. So he's going for the pressure on e4. Normally, when I play against this, I just take the pawn, and then I play bishop c5, stuff like this. Just get my pieces out. Knight c6, or maybe knight d7. Just to feel natural. But this is also a nice way to play, because we just ask the question to white. Okay, how will you protect your pawn after I play bishop b7? Will they play e5 and give us something to do on that square? We don't know, but we'll see. This is the plan that he's chosen. And white seems very confused about what to do here. So that's always a good sign for us. Because to me, the plan for, or at least the attraction to an opening like the King's Indian attack is that it's just a robot. It's a no-brain opening. You just do the same moves every time against everything, you know? Kind of like openings like the old Indian. What else is like that? The Philidor in some way is like that too. So it's just a lazy opening, you know. But
sounds like my kind of opening. I like that.
Yeah, you just do whatever, and you start thinking like 10 moves in. So for him to be confused in an opening like this is that's not a good sign for white, because the moves are just so free. Personally, as white, I would just play g3 anyways. If they play bishop b7, then I'd play e5. Then maybe d4 if I had to protect the pawn. Early e5. Okay, knight d7. Will they go for g3 or will they go for d4? Okay, so they've gone for d4, maybe hinting that they want to put their bishop on d3. But then why is the knight on d2 instead? Very strange. Usually for this type of setup in the French, you'd want to have this. This kind of reminds me of the Tarrasch, but this knight would be able to be on e2 instead, and then it would be able to swing over and help on f4 and jump into the battle, but this knight on d2 is really restricting white's play. So what might Roman do here? I like his position. Things like knight c6 feels natural. Wonder what else he could play. There's nothing else really to consider. Maybe bishop e7. I feel like I would play knight c6 though. Yeah. Does white have to play a3 here? If they castle, then pawn takes d4. Forces pawn to take. Otherwise, the pawn on e5 hangs from all the attackers. And then after pawn takes back from c3 to d4, then there's knight to b4, threatening some queen c2 or even knight c2 ideas. And this would give black a big advantage because the bishop on c1 can't move. And the opponent found this. So the knight can't come into b4, but what could we do instead? He just decides to play bishop e7, going for castle. But ideas like rook c8, pawn takes pawn in the future look really strong for black. So I'm going to start to take a look at board 2. So let's see, what kind of opening was this? e4, another French defense. Okay. But so far on board 2, I'm liking what Nathaniel has done. He's got a great F file here. He's got to play e5 sometime. He plays it now. I like that. The goal is to, of course, push the pawn as far as he can go, but the opponent won't allow this. So knight takes pawn after they take back. We'll allow our light square bishop to get in. And then we castle. We put the rooks on f8 and e8. And black's doing awesome. Why is this knight on f1? What happened there? White has mishandled this position. Black's got their pieces ready to fight. And this looks great. Let's jump to board 3 here. Okay, this was an Italian. Let's see, was the move order normal? Looks fine. Okay, so very interesting position. This could go both ways. Lots of imbalances here. Little options that white can do. For example, white could double up the c pawns with bishop takes knight. White can bring the bishop back to d3 to have some ideas going on h7 or e4. White could go for ideas with storming on the king side, possibly with the f pawn. So, okay, black decides just to take this. Now, is that the best? Possibly they could have considered maybe bishop to f5. Looked like an interesting idea. But after this, I believe she should take with the pawn here. That would make the pawn on d4 much more solid. We can bring the bishop back to d3 and hit on h7. If we go queen takes, this is actually just an immediate blunder. Bishop takes, or bishop to a5 here pins the queen to the king, and we have nothing to save that. So okay, yeah, she takes with the pawn, and now her plan should be to bring the bishop back to d3 and start up some fights on the h7 square. The opponent actually takes this knight. Now, I was considering this, but I don't think this is correct. You're going to open up our file where we had already considered doing that in the first place because we like the possibilities on h7. So now I'd like to see Iris here play pawn f4, or maybe she can just directly jump out with bishop d3. A very interesting idea. She shouldn't worry with anything like pawn takes pawn right now. That's a little bit too much, as we're going to be opening up the F file, activating our opponent's pieces. They're going to play queen takes pawn, and then here they come down for our pawns on F3 and F2. So she has to consider either F4 here or bishop D3 are the only two moves, in my opinion. So we'll give her 30 seconds or so to see what she does. Trying to see, is there anything else? No, I like bishop d3. That's what I would play, probably. Bishop d3 or f4. Nah, yeah, bishop d3 looks like the choice to me. So we'll see. What does she do here? Bishop d3, rook g1. That looks really, really strong. Bishop d3, f4, then rook g1. Something like this. This is the idea she should be going for. Looking at h7. Look at all these weak light squares at him. E6, F7, F5. She goes for F4. Okay. Now, a little reason why I was not sure if she should go with this right away. What if the opponent plays F5? And then after bishop D3, they have pawn G6. And that pawn on F5 is solid. Maybe if we would have played bishop D3 first, they couldn't have played F5. But either way, F4, white's is still better. I would never pick black in this position. So I'm still confident for white here. Hoping black does not find F5, though. That could be a real roadblock for Iris's plans here. But white is still looking pretty strong. So let's take a look at board 4. Let's see what Asish is doing. He's got the white pieces. Sicilian. Okay. Interesting. He had a chance to trade queens and declined. I believe that was the best decision. Now, he's preparing to put his rook from A to D1. He's got excellent piece play after he can achieve something like this. And the opponent has a tough decision as well. They have to defend their B7 pawn. Now, normally when we get attacked, we want to play moves like rook B8 or pawn B6, you know, just to play defense right away without thinking. But if we just do this, this will allow Asish to play moves like rook D1 and really start to fight. So we can see why the opponent just said whatever to playing defense, and they're going for the win. Now, I wouldn't have played the move that they played, because what if Asish just played the move we talked about and he plays rook D1? Where's the queen go now, right? So rook from A to D1. The queen goes to F5. Then we play rook D4, or rook D5, I mean, to hit that queen. I'm not sure why rook queen D3 was played. I'm trying to find any reason, but rook D1 looks super obvious here. Yeah, and what's the opponent do now? Queen G6? Queen A6? Ugh. Ugly position. Queen A6. Because now the pawn's hanging on B7 still. They can't go to F5, remember, because we have rook D5 winning a bishop because it hits the queen and the bishop. Okay, they go back to G6. But this position is ugly. What if we play... Okay, so his idea now is maybe knight D4. But knight D4 doesn't work because we have knight E5 as an in-between move there. So can we just take this pawn on B7? I know that would give him play. If we take on B7, he's going to have rook from A to B8 and then take on B2 and hit F2 because the rook and the bishop. And luckily for him, his queen guards the knight. So after we take the pawn, everything is fine. So we should not take the pawn here. What should we do? I don't like being pinned. But we should not play H3. There's a nice tactic in here. After we play H3, black will be winning. So we play H3. They play bishop takes knight because H3 actually undefends our G3 pawn because the F2 pawn is pinned. So the queen's looking at that pawn by X-ray. And if we play H3, they're going to play bishop takes knight. Bishop takes bishop is pretty much forced. And then queen takes G3 is a check. And that's game over. Because anywhere the king moves is also check. And that's not going to be good for us. So H3... I want to get rid of this pin, but that won't work. Asish also doesn't like the pin. He plays queen c4. Okay, attacking the bishop. Also putting sneaky pressure on the bishop on g4. Possibly knight h4 could be a sneaky move here. But we'll see. So far, this looks fine. I expect the opponent will just play like bishop b6 or something. What else is there? And then maybe Asish wants to hop in with this knight to d5. Or maybe he just wants to trade queens with like queen e4. We'll see. So far, I think we're winning on each board. I like all the positions. Let's go back to board 3 as the opponent has found f5. Oh, no. But this still looks fine. What could Iris plan here? She needs to play on the g file. But the problem is the opponent's going to play g6. So I'm thinking she should play moves like h4 and h5. Play some silly moves like king e2 or king d2, and then put the rook on g1 and put lots of pressure on the king. Now, the purpose of playing h5 is to slow down the possibility of g6. If they want to protect the g file, then at least make them pay with an open h file, because we're going to take. So h4, h5, and then to start stacking up on the g file looks like a good plan. The problem is, though, how do we get our dark square bishop into this plan? So we play a move like pawn f3, and then have our bishop go from e3 to f2 to h4? Or maybe should we leave the pawn there and play bishop c1, bishop a3? I like that idea. I think she should play pawn a4 first, because if we play bishop c1, then maybe the opponent plays queen e7 to stop us. So something like a4, then bishop c1, bishop a3 could be very powerful, because this also tries to prevent f-file activities, trying to remove a defender from the pawn on f5. If they play something like rook f7, then now there might be possible tactics later on with pawn e6. We don't know, right? The king and the rook are on the same line. Maybe a surprise pawn c4 could really hurt. But right now for Iris, I like the move a4, bishop c1, and bishop a3. And then on top of that, maybe h4, h5, and get some ideas going. But oh no, she blocked her bishop. The bishop is out the game, Adam. I don't like it. But hey, she's going for the idea that I found first. She wants to play on the g file. She wants to swing that rook over, and then she wants to play h4, h5, and stack everybody up on the g file. She just says that her bishop is just playing defense. Trying to prevent the pawn from going to c5 is what she likes her bishop doing right now. So Iris is still doing all right. I'm liking her position. Let's go back to board 2 now. Okay, board 2 is looking great. He's got his open attack lines, which is what he wanted. He just sacked a pawn here. He just played... Oh, no. It's not a pawn sack, because if they take, then there's bishop b4. So it's not a pawn sack. Let's see. Is black just better? Where does the knight go? After the knight moves, we have pawn takes pawn to open up everything. And then we could play something like bishop c4 to stop the kingside castle, trying to put the rook on e8. But then what if he queenside castles? He can't queenside castle either, because then the king and the queen will be on the same line. He'll have a king on c1, queen on d2, and we can put our dark square bishop on f4. So, okay. Does he play pawn takes pawn here? Or does he just go with rook e8? Or maybe bishop c4? So many ideas here. I think he should do pawn takes pawn, though. Pawn takes pawn. Yep. Okay. I like the open lines. Pawn takes pawn is pretty much forced. Can he get away with queen takes queen? That's such a weird move, though. So suspicious. Or queen takes pawn here, I mean. No way, right? He can't play that. So pawn takes, and then after pawn takes, what could we do? We have rook e8, possible move. Bishop c4, possible move. I like bishop c4. I really like bishop c4 if pawn takes, preventing the castle short at least. Queen takes. That's very suspicious. What do we do here? So we should still play bishop c4. Bishop c4 is an extremely nice move because it prevents the kingside castle. And in response, if white says, okay, well, rook e8's coming, checkmate's coming, I'm scared, I don't want to do that, right? And they queenside castle after that, then once again, suspicious, the king is on c1 and the bishop is on h4, so queen to f4 check would win a piece. So bishop c4, in essence, prevents castle both ways, and rook e8 is a guaranteed hit. Will Nathaniel find this? Bishop c4 looks very strong to me. And if they play knight e3 to try to kick our bishop out, and to close the e-file. A nice try, but they forgot that their queen and king are on the same line, and bishop b4 will win the game because the knight has to guard that and can't move. And wow, look at Nathaniel here, finds it. Bishop c4, and black is winning. I don't see a save here. They can't block with bishop. They're going to get pinned, and rook e8 is going to hurt. Knight can't move because there's bishop b4. The king can't move. White's in trouble. Wow. And what's this? Let's see. Okay. I don't see a move. So that's pretty good for black. Oh, they take the knight. Okay, that was a nice move. This stops us from playing bishop b4 at least. But let's see. What do we have here? Get capture. They're going to play knight e3 next. Okay, but we still have rook e8. Do we have possibly g5? If we play g5, then the bishop goes to g3. Bishop takes. If a pawn takes, we have queen f2, but they can have queen takes. That doesn't work. Tough position. Black is still winning, though. After knight e3, pretty much the only move here, we have rook e8. And then they still can't short castle, and they also can't take our bishop. If they long castle, we take on a2. So rook from a to e8 looks like a great move here. The knight will be pinned and cannot support the bishop on or cannot support the capture on c4. Will Nathaniel find rook e8? Rook from a to e8. Rook from f to e8. Interesting. So he wants to put his other rook on the b file. He still is attracted to the idea of bishop b4. I like the pressure that the rook on f8 was doing. It was putting some good pressure onto f2. Either way, though, we had to put a one rook on e8. So I'm liking what black's doing here. I don't see a way for white to get out of this. They can't queenside castle because we take on a2. And they can't short castle because that's illegal. So, all right, let's take a look at board one. All of our boards are doing well so far. Board one, we're in check. What happened here? The opponent has 4 seconds left. Looks like they're about to resign. Queen g3 coming. Yeah, they might as well have just resigned instead. Queen, no? Is that the best? What's the best move here? Queen e3. No, okay. Okay, rook g8 was coming. All right, and we win. So what happened here? Why did the opponents... Wow, they actually had 2 queens on Roman for a minute. Okay, we missed a couple of fireworks in this game then. Roman played good defense. Wow, a very exciting game. Roman's got a very aggressive play style. It's been interesting watching him play his games over the season. He's always had like 2 bishops for down the exchange, you know, but his bishops have been great, or just a really fantastic compensation for the position. So great job to Roman here. We've got a point so far. Let's go back to Asish's game on board 4. He's down on time, but he has some really good pieces here. What can he play? Should he play knight f3? I feel like that's all he's got. Knight f3, or maybe, because knight f3, and then if knight takes, we have bishop takes. No, that loses to h3 pawn. That's no good. Knight f3, knight takes queen. And then rook takes, just fair trades. We're fine. Yeah, okay, he likes knight f3. What if pawn g4? Okay, the opponent just goes for trades. Now, after all this, rook d2. I'm not yet convinced that the opponent made the right decision. What if, let's see, what do they have? They're attacking our pawns, which is good. Can we just play something like bishop d1, give away the pawn, and then play bishop b3, and then let our knight roam around? I like how the rook is stopping the king, but I'm not convinced this is winning just yet. I like the attacking move. King f7 is coming up next, and then what? Oh, he just took. Okay, well, check. Okay. Knight e4. No knight e4. All right. Bishop back. Knight e4 would have hit the pawn on g5. Also stops the king from coming to f6, as we see here. Will he play knight e4 now? That will allow king f5. I say the only way we lose this game is if this king somehow wiggles its way onto f3. That will be very scary, starting to attack our pawns. If their king is not allowed to get there, then we're going to be fine. But this rook is doing a great job of stopping our king. Although it's not winning yet, it's doing a good job. The way to get out of this bind here, we have to put our knight to f2 when it's safe. That way our king can walk out. So a move like king g1, followed by knight f2, king g2, king f3, maybe we can squeeze out of here. But if our king can't get in, then we're not going to win either, and this might be a draw. Watch out for rook e3. Looks like the best move here, but rook e3 loses to knight d5. I'm sure the opponent sees this. My guess is that this ends up in a draw. Let's see. King g2. Wow, they let us out. No way. We were just talking about how good that rook was that was blocking our king. And now they just let us out for free. But their king is coming in close. Tough game. I still like white, though. I trust the two pieces will get the win somehow. King g4 is a threat. Okay, they found it. What can we do here? Knight e4 is no longer working. Can we play knight e2? Where are we trying to go after knight e2? I don't know. Okay, knight d1. Okay. So there's an idea now. We can place a move like bishop f7 to hit that pawn back there, force them to play like h4, and then we can find a way for our king or knight to come over there and hit the pawn. They see this again, and yeah, this is looking like a draw. They're not letting us have fun here. That king, though, is very scary. I don't know what we can do here. Let's say they get their king over to b2, and then they play moves like a5, b5, a4. That could be very scary for white. But at the same time, our king can now just walk up to f3 again, and we pretty much offer our opponent a draw because they can't let our king get in there either. h4, but then they can play g4 and lock us out. Okay. What do we do now? Okay, he wants bishop g6. Does that work? Oh, no, I think we just lost Adam. Because now they're... Oh, no, we're fine. We're fine still, just barely. Is there... Because now there's king e3 as a big threat. We have bishop d3, though. That way they can't play king e3. It hits the rook, but then the rook can take the pawn. Big trouble here. Asish found it. That's why he hasn't moved yet. Bishop d1. Okay, that also works. Rook takes pawn. Maybe king f1. And the worst nightmare came true. The king is wiggling through the position. And we're actually forced back on the first rank where we didn't want to be. And why didn't they take the pawn here? Okay, we play king. Oh, no. And then there's, now there's king e3. And, this is lost. Oh, no. Well, that was a nice try by Asish. Somehow the king got in there. I think h4 was the big mistake. h4 allowed them to keep our king out. I think Asish wanted to win really bad and did not want the draw. The move to play possibly was king f3 and just say, well, if you leave, then I get in, and if you check me, then you can't stop bishop f7. So, unfortunate loss there. I believe that Asish at least had a draw. But all right, let's see. Let's look at board 3 because Iris has got a great position. She blew her opponent out to center somehow. She traded off that really bad dark square bishop somehow. So all the wishes have come true here. We want to play h4, h5. That's the last thing we want here, and then our position is golden. Only problems I could see is that what do we play in response to something like queen c7? Okay. We can't play rook c1 because of nasty tactics. Rook c1 loses to pawn b5. Rook c1, pawn b5. If bishop takes, then the bishop was pinned, and queen takes rook is mate. So that's not good. And rook c1, pawn b5. If queen takes, then now the queen is pinned to the king, right, with rook b8. So how do we protect this bishop here? Do we play bishop d3? But then maybe, I don't know. It's going to get interesting. There's counterplay for black here. What will she do? I feel like I would play bishop b3 or bishop d3 here, and then after check, just put my king on the light square and hold on as best as I can because the opponent has no light square pieces. Bishop d3, they play check. We go back to b1, and we run that pawn up there as fast as we can. That's what I'm looking at. Let's see. They don't check us. They're going for f2 check instead. Maybe they're going for d4 check. I'm not scared of d4 check, though. Is there rook c3? That's what they want? d4, then rook c3? What do we play here? We can't take on b7. Taking on b7 results in rook b8. The threat is queen d4 check, king anywhere, and then rook c3, which hits the queen and the bishop at the same time. I don't see a way to answer this threat. Maybe we have bishop c2. Bishop c2 will protect everything, but after d4 check, it also hits the pawn on f4. Iris sees this. I don't see a way to protect it. Do we do rook d1? Rook d1, queen check, king down, queen takes on f4, hits the rook and the pawn on e5. The attack has fizzled, but at least we're not losing. What do we play here? Do we play rook to g3? I like rook g3, but then there's rook. She just plays down. Okay. I understand that one. But queen d4 is still a good threat. Will the opponent find queen d4 here? I'm hearing a lot of moves go off on board too. Okay, he's up a queen. The opponent blundered. He's going to win this. Let's see. Queen b3. Very good. They're going to resign. Yeah, this is winning for black. Great job by Nathaniel. Yeah, he trusted in opening up the attack lines, and it paid off. Great game by him. Let's jump back to board 3. She's got less than 10 seconds. Queen takes f4. Or maybe does rook c3. That looks like that hurts. Rook c3. Rook c4. Rook c4 threatening rook b4. We play a3. They play rook c3 now. Interesting idea. Or maybe they play rook from... Okay. This is not looking good. And she ran out of time. Oh, no. Unfortunate. This guy's lead chess rating is 2,500. So if she won this, that would have been incredible. But she had a good position. I think let's go back. What actually happened with that bishop there? How did she get it out? The dark square bishop? I'm curious. So she put everything on the G file. Wow, the opponent actually traded their knight for our bishop. Our bishop never moved at all. They just straight up took the bishop on E3, and Irish is like, all right, deal, I accept. They traded this to open up the center, though. Okay. I'm looking at it. Okay, I like Irish's position. Did she miss bishop E6? No, because there was queen D4 check. Okay. Tough game. I'm not sure what to say about this one. My idea, bishop C1, A4, bishop A3, possibly, or maybe she should have played H4, H5 earlier. But all right, let's look at game one. Oh, wait, game one already finished.
I'm going to check my paper. I've got 2-2 and Kozelov in fast one. Does that sound right?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, you've got board 4 going. Asish is playing the second round. He likes this opening. E4, E6, French defense. Trading off lots of pieces. We can expect like bishop C5 coming soon. Or maybe he could just play bishop E7. Definitely pawn B5 is in the works. Wanting to put the bishop on B7. That's a great diagonal looking at the king. The opponent here should play A4. Bishop E3. Okay, so B5. B5, bishop B7. Bishop C5. Why not B5? There's no sacrifices on B5. I like that idea to put the bishop on B7. Maybe he was going to play bishop E2, bishop B7, bishop F3. Even still, I like the bishop on B7, though. Very interesting. Okay, well, I mean, he's not worse. Does knight E6 work? Knight E6. If they take the knight back, there's bishop takes bishop is my idea. But there's a lot of Zwischenzugs in here. Knight E6. Queen takes queen. And then rook takes queen. Bishop takes bishop. And then is there knight C7 check? Ooh, that's messy. Okay, so knight E6. Bishop takes bishop. Interesting. What do they have here? Knight takes E6. Bishop takes bishop. Can we do knight G7 check? King over to F8. Queen takes queen. Bishop takes. Pawn takes on E3. Opening up the rook. But no, we lose material. Okay, so knight E6 doesn't work because we just take the bishop on E3. But very interesting, though. Or maybe, will the opponent here play rook E3 since they possibly see this? Rook E3, then it would work. Or rook E1, I mean. But then we can castle here as black. Very interesting position. The opponent is definitely calculating knight E6. Doesn't look like it works, though, because bishop takes bishop. So, okay, queen e2. They didn't go for it. Rook d1 is the idea, from a to d1. What will Asish do? Short castle looks best. Short castle, but then we have to check, does knight e6 work again? Short castle, knight. Oh, wait a minute. Can we just take the knight? Take the knight, rook d1, and then we play. No, we can't keep all three pieces. I was thinking somehow we were going to be able to trade the queen for the knight, bishop, and rook, but we can't. At best, it'll just be queen for bishop and rook here. I was thinking bishop takes knight, rook d1, bishop takes bishop, and allow them to take our queen, but we have nothing after that. We're going to lose our bishop. So what will Asish do? Does he have e5 here? Something like e5 followed by queen g4. But then our pawn on e5 seems a little weak. But they can't get to it. Maybe they play knight f3. I don't know. I just like the castle. I'm scared of knight e6 though. Maybe now we can play pawn b5. But then after pawn b5, can the knight take on b5? Ouch. So this knight is big problems. What does Asish do? He takes it. Yeah. Yep. He sees the problem. Okay. So rook d1. Rook from a to d1 most likely. And then after that, he's going to be a little bit worse because of the two bishops. Should he castle here? Or should he play e5? No. Tough position. If he plays e5, the opponent plays c3. Then we can play queen g4. But then they have pawn f3. No, but then we have bishop takes bishop as a check, so that doesn't work. e5 and queen g4, try to trade the queens. If we allow the queens to stay here, having the two bishops and the rook swing coming up from d3 to h3 or g3, right, is going to be a big problem. So we don't want to have the queens on the board. That's why I'm thinking to trade the queens here. I'm wondering, will Asish find e5 and queen g4? Even then, the queen is not forced to trade, but at least we have something. We're trying to fight. Tough position. Let's look at the next board. Okay, let's look at board 3. What opening was this? b4 first. Interesting. Okay. Iris's position looks perfectly fine. I think she should castle here. And she castles. Very nice. Knight c3. And okay. How do we create some fire here? We have lots of pieces out. We have a castle, right? We have 3 pieces ready to go. Our opponent has 3 pieces ready to go, but they have not castled. So we have a temporary advantage at them, right? We got to use it or else it's going to go away. We got to start a fight somewhere, and we got to open up the files. I want to play pawn d4, but I'm not sure if it's the right idea. It feels correct because it opens up everything. It pretty much forces white to do something because we're hitting the knight. Either they let us play pawn d4 and then we have a pawn on d4, which is just massive, right? And then we can play pawn e5, bishop c5, stuff like this. But if we play pawn d4 and they take with pawn, then maybe we had moves like bishop f4 or bishop b4. I don't know. Something about pawn d4 looked scary, but it felt right. Be interesting to see what the engine said about that move later on. So, okay, what do we have now? We got to get our pieces out. Our advantage is going away. The opponent's going to castle soon. I'm sure Iris wants to play e5, but can't. Is she trying to? Okay, she's going to play b5, followed by bishop b7. The opponent will then play... No, should she? Okay, the opponent will play d4. Okay. I like the bishop. She should play e5 here. Let's open up everything. Or maybe let's move the queen first. How about queen e7? then rook from f to d8, and then e5. I like that even better. We can't let this d4 pawn stop our knight from doing anything. So e5 is the eventual play, but when to play it is the question. I like queen e7 and putting the rook on the queen first. But overall, Irish's position looks fine. Even if she doesn't find this plan, I mean, she might find something like knight b4 and then knight d5, just starting to improve her pieces little by little. Maybe knight a5, rook c8, and knight c4. So I see no problems with what she's doing. Her position looks fine. Let's take a look at board 2. Okay, what opening was this one? Okay. Trompowski here. Interesting move order, though. Okay, so first impression here, I like White's position. Nathaniel's out to a great start once again. He's going for a minority pawn attack. He wants to play pawn b5. We can assume the opponent won't let this happen. They should play something like a6. But then we're going to play a4 and rook b1 and b5, and we're going to have excellent play on the queen side. This also may result in a passed pawn on the d file. So I'm not convinced that black has any counterplay at all because they have no development, right? Once again, we have this development advantage. So what Nathaniel here is doing is 100% correct. He's going for opening up the attack lines, although maybe he could have considered playing e4 instead because the king is in the center. But after e4 pawn takes, this undoubles their pawn. Queen takes will give us an isolated pawn, and they're going to threaten to queen trade. So that's probably why he didn't play this. So I agree with Nathaniel here. b4 was more correct. Maybe he could have gone for f3, then e4. Not sure. But either way, he's got a good position. What will the opponent do? Will he castle or play a6 here? I feel like I would probably play just castle. I don't like my king being in the center like that. Castle, then like rook b1, knight d7, or maybe queen h4.
Which
queen
game are you
e7.
on?
I'm on board 2, looking at Nathaniel's game.
And somebody's not castled on yours?
Yeah, or wait, am I... Okay, so I was a move behind.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so he just
I was on the wrong board. There was one game where a couple weeks ago where I was on the wrong board and I was watching it trying to follow what they were talking about, and I said the rook can't make that move legally, and then I figured out I was... They told me
that's funny.
Master move. I didn't understand it.
Okay, so now I'm caught up now. They just played knight d7. We were just talking about these ideas. Why did he play a4, though? They didn't stop him. I think he should have just played rook b1. Rook b1, rook c1 looked like the better idea. But okay, he should play b5 now. That looks like a nice plan. b5, the opponent might play pawn c5 in response, trying to close the files because they have less pieces out and don't want a fight. So since they want to play c5, maybe we should play rook from f to d1 first? No, that feels a little useless, though. What should we do? Or maybe we don't care, right? We play b5, they play pawn c5, and then we just jump up to d5, threatening pawn d6. Then they have knight e5. We have to trade everything, and they can blockade our dark squares. So we can't do that. That's no good. What do we do then? Very interesting. Do we just go for pawn? No, we can't play d5 at all. Knight e5. So we have to prevent c5 somehow. How do we prevent c5? Maybe rook from f to d1. This will pin them. Okay, so his idea is similar. He wants to play b5. After c5, what is he doing? pawn takes, knight takes, queen takes queen, rook takes, and then that knight is sitting on an x-ray. But the knight is also threatening to go to b3. So I'm not sure this actually prevented c5. Either way, this is very interesting. And the opponent runs away from c5. Now, okay, so we still can't play c5 because our pawn is pinned to our queen. The opponent wants knight d5, maybe knight e4, but then we have f3. So maybe queen d5 is what the opponent wants. Okay, b5 here. But now the opponent has c5, like we were talking about. Will they find this c5 move? Taking the pawn is a very bad decision, opening up our attack lines everywhere. Leaving the pawn there is also a very bad decision, allowing us to take on c6 and have something to do. Now we can stack our rooks up on the c-file. The only decision that keeps black in the game is to push to c5. It attempts to close most of our attack lines, right? And it also gives them some play on the d-file. Will they find c5? If not, white is clearly better. While they're looking, let's take a look at board 1. Okay. Board 1, Sicilian. Same opening as Asish, actually. They played the kingside fianchetto here. Let's see. Okay. So, very interesting position. First impressions. I like Roman's bishop on b2. That's a nice piece. It's looking at the king. I wish somehow we could find ways to add pressure on that diagonal. Maybe moves like c4. That way I can put my queen on c3. C4 would also slow down moves like d5. Black wants to open up everything. Something like rook from f to d8 and d5 looks like the plan for black. So I like c4. How else could I make something happen here? I want to get that pawn off of g5. I want to play like f4, h4, and just crush the opponent here. But we can't. What do we do? We can't move our knight to f5, or at least we can't do it safely, it looks like. And the opponent plays d5, a good move by the opponent. We go for e5. After knight takes, rook takes, queen takes, they're on an x-ray, but can we move our knight since the bishop is not protected back there on b2? Or after knight takes pawn, maybe we have knight takes e6. Yeah, that's the much better move. So, okay. The knight has to move, but our bishop is blocked. Where's the knight go? Can the knight go to e4? Bishop takes, pawn takes, knight to g3. Then they have maybe knight to f4. I like knight e4 here by the opponent. Will they find this move? And they go back. Okay. What do we do here? We go back. Okay. How do we start up some counterplay? The opponent's going to play moves like rook from f to c8. And then I'm a little worried about how we can have our own ideas here, because it looks like all of our plans are closing and we're starting to play defense. What do we do here? Knight d4? And maybe we say they can't take it because they're on an x-ray on e5. Okay. Bishop d4 here. Knight d4. Okay. Can he get away with knight takes pawn now? Because if we move our knight, he can do bishop takes rook. Interesting position. I think Roman may be in trouble this game. moves like a5, a4, or a5, bishop a6. Black's got a lot of tricks up their sleeve. A little worried for Roman here as white, but he does have the time advantage in his favor. Finding a plan here as black is not easy, as it looks like they're focused on the e5 pawn. The e5 pawn looks to be solid to me. The opponent has to find a way to open up the queen side with a5. And he goes to take it. Now, I thought this was bad because knight takes knight, knight takes knight. Is there some kind of x-ray? Or maybe, what do we do? This looks like she shouldn't have done this. But there's now the bishop is awake, right? The opponent didn't have to worry about any counterplay because the bishop was closed. But taking this bishop gives us something to hope for. What do we do? The problem, though, is that we can't move the knight because of tactical reasons. Bishop takes rook. Let's say, for example, we do knight takes e6. Then bishop takes rook is threatening the same threat that we were with knight takes queen. They're doing bishop takes queen. So a big mess here. But wait a minute. Knight takes e6. Bishop takes rook. What if we do queen takes bishop? They have to take back our knight. And then we do bishop takes on e5. Then we have a great bishop. These are the type of positions that Roman plays for. A great bishop. We're down the exchange, but that bishop is amazing. Okay, he doesn't do that. I like this position. Maybe we just end up sacking the h-pawn. Just play h4 and get stuff moving. h4, if the knight takes on g4, we have rook g3. Excellent move, because now everything's hanging on the g file. h4, if they don't take, then we can open up that attack line on the h file. What does he do about his knight in trouble here? Does he play bishop d6? I don't know. I like Roman's position. Let's take a look back at board 2 to see what happened there. So when we stopped looking at it, we looked to see, did the opponent find c5, because we were trying to open up the lines. And the opponent did not find c5. They went for knight e5. They found, okay, so they sacked on h2. Are we in trouble here? Is this a forced draw? Okay, so this is a forced draw if the opponent wants it. There's no win in the position. After queen f2, we go to h2. And then if the opponent does not see how to finish the deal, then we take the knight on e4. If the knight runs away, then we play rook f1. So this is a forced draw. The opponent found a very interesting move, knight e4. Did we have to? Let's see. What do we do here? King takes. Okay. So yeah, even if we didn't play f3, it was still the same threat. Looks like board 2 is going to end as a draw, and it just did. Okay, so not bad. Let's take a look back at board 1. They had a really interesting position. Board 1. Okay. What do we do about this dark square bishop? If we're going to win the game, that's going to be how we do it. Crazy question here. Do we do rook takes e6? Is that too much? Rook takes e6. I'm thinking after pawn takes, we have knight takes e6. I want to get my queen and open up everything. I want to play like queen c3, queen d4. I want to get my pieces in here. Maybe it's not worth that. Should we do... Does knight takes e6 work? Bishop takes rook. Queen takes bishop. Scary position, but it does not work. How do we get this bishop in the game? h4, okay. If pawn takes, what's the plan? If pawn takes, the queen has an x-ray on h6. Maybe a move like rook f3 to stop the queen from coming to f4 and blocking the attack. What's the plan if knight takes pawn? If knight takes pawn, what was the knight guarding that he was caring about? The knight was blocking e5. I'm not quite seeing what the idea here is after knight takes. Pawn takes seems pretty simple, but knight takes, I feel like black is still hanging in here. E6 is definitely a point of interest. Tough game. I feel like Roman's just trying to open up anything to give himself a chance, which is the right idea. Because if he just sits and does nothing, then there's e5, d4, e4, and the opponent's bishops are going to hurt us real bad. So we can expect knight takes here. Okay, and then what does he play now? This was the part I didn't know. Okay, so now he goes for fireworks. This is Roman at his best. This is the positions he plays for. Pawn takes is pretty much forced. What else can he do? And then what do we do? Knight takes or rook takes? I feel like knight takes is correct. Okay. Queen f7 hits the knight and it hits f2, threatening to trade pieces and then come down there on rook c2 check and win all of our bishops. But queen f7 also allows knight takes bishop on c5, rook takes knight, and then we have the nice move queen d4, threatening mate on h8 and the rook on c5. And the opponent walks right into this. Does Roman see it? Knight takes bishop and queen d4. Excellent. Rook takes. Taking a quick look at the other games. Iris is severely down on time, but she's got a good position. Oh no, she just blundered her queen. Okay, so she's losing that game. What about Asish here? I like Asish's position. After the bishop has to leave, he's got something like rook a4. Looks good. There's rook d3 coming. So bishop d5 here for Asish. Interesting game. Okay, so looking kind of drawish there on board 4. Let's take a look back at board 1. The opponent still has not taken our knight. King does not have to take. We can just play queen d4 threatening checkmate here. And then ask the opponent what are they going to do about that. A really nice in-between move there. Queen d4 is the best move on the board. He finds it. Look at Roman here. Okay, so what does the opponent do? Do they play king f8? No, king f8's losing to knight e6. The king cannot, in response, go to king e8 because, oh wait, no, our rook's hanging. Do we have some kind of double checks here? Interesting. Okay, they go to h7. I'm starting to check moves like rook e7, you know? I feel like we got something. But queen takes rook. There's nothing there. Do we have queen d3 check? Is that winning somehow? Let's say we play rook e7, queen takes, queen d3 check. If the king goes back to g8, we have queen g6, king f8, knight e6. Is that game? Rook e7, what a firework. What else do they have? Rook e7. They have to take. And then we have queen check. He found it. Wow. Okay. So queen has to take. Queen d3 then. Can the queen block on e4? No, because then we have knight takes, pawn takes, and then we can put our queen onto d7. Wow. What a game by Roman. Rook takes e6. Would you have had the courage to do that, Adam? Rook takes pawn, sack?
Nope.
That's a tough one. I think I would have had to think for at least 30 minutes before I played that type of move.
I usually make unintentional sacrifices.
So now black's lost. King g8 loses to queen g6 and then knight e6. What a game. Queen block loses to knight takes and then queen d7. Wow. Queen g6 here. King f8, knight e6, resigns. Or maybe is bishop g7 technically more accurate? Bishop g7, queen takes, and then knight e6. I like my bishop, though. I don't want to do that. Yeah, Roman's thinking about bishop g7 here. I wouldn't be surprised if he played it. It's not a bad move. Knight e6 or bishop g7 is what he's thinking about. What will he do? I feel like knight e6 is the easy win. Because then there's bishop a3 and all this stuff. There's lots of checks we have with the queen. There's no way the king survives that one. So will he play knight e6? I'm hearing a lot of moves go off. Okay, Asish is up on time while I'm waiting for Roman on his board. Looks like, okay, Asish is winning here. Yeah, this game's actually over. Rook a2 check, and the opponent has lost a rook. Wow, very nice for Asish. Got the game in the bag. Okay. And this was against their, was this against their board 2 player?
Putnam, yeah, he's their board 2. 22.
Very nice for Asish then. Wow. Okay, so unfortunately Iris lost. So we split on 3 and 4. Did board 2 end up in a draw?
Yeah.
Looks like they started another game. Okay, so if Roman wins on board 1 here, then we won the round. Last round was 2-2, so we're going to be able to be up half a point after 2 rounds. Looks like Nathaniel also started his 3rd round as well. But okay, all eyes on board 1. He found bishop g7, queen takes is forced, and then there's knight e6. King has to go to e7, and then knight takes queen, then knight f5, queen, things like this. Okay, queen e6.
And Illinois.
But then there's
Illinois is currently up 3.5 to 2.5 over Pennsylvania. So.
Ooh, okay. If we win, though, then we're good, right?
Yeah,
they can't catch us if
we win.
So we'll see. Right now, it's all in Roman's hands. Queen e6 is the only move I can see. Maybe queen takes h6, but then rook takes c2 is starting to look kind of scary. But then we have queen takes g5. Very messy. I would have played queen e6 real quick. Yeah. King f8, queen f6. Okay, king back there. What do we play now? Knight e6, threatening g7 with the queen. And that's unstoppable, right? Yeah, queen g7 mate. Good game, Roman. That was impressive. Wow. Rook takes e6. That was nice. I feel like as the opponent, you can't even be mad at a move like that. It's like, well, hey, you found it. Good job. So, okay. So after that round, we were 2.5 to 1.5. So we're actually up a point in the match so far.
Yeah, 4.5 to 3.5 at the halfway point. So.
Yeah. So technically, from the math we were doing earlier, we have to get at least 6.5 points for the total match to win on tie breaks if we lose and Illinois wins.
Yeah.
So I feel like we've already got it in the bag. We still want to win, though, to make it just an outright victory.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I think we win any tie breaks. I don't know exactly how that USAT thing works, but we won the head-to-head, and we should be ahead on game points. So.
But they've gone for this bishop g5. Okay. Are they trying to queenside castle? No way, right? They should have developed their kingside bishop first. They had like bishop b5 check, or maybe bishop e2. They had something. They should be getting their king out the center. Why are they moving their pieces like this? So, they want to play knight c6. I feel like we don't care though, do we? They also want to play bishop b5. So, if let's say we play queen a5 check, they play bishop d2, and then we play queen b6. Okay, so he's handed the bishop away. I'm not sure about this one. I like queen a5 there, and then castle. Well, no, queen a5, then there's pawn c3, and then they have knight c6 again. Maybe bishop d7 was correct. I feel like that's not correct, though. So the bishop's on d3. Queen c7. Develop with some kind of tempo here. Where's the bishop go? I like bishop f4 for the opponent, which stops queen c7. But in general, Asish just wants to get his pieces out, castle, and he wants to play e5 someday. e5, e4 is the plan, so we want to play moves like queen c7, bishop d6, and kick this knight out, but the opponent will play moves like rook e1, queen e2, pawn f4, and they're going to keep up the blockade because they really, really like their bishop on d3. That's their main piece that they're trying to use to win the game. They're using this to aim at the king over there. Possibly they're going to throw the g-pawn down here to open up some lines. Not sure yet. They maybe might castle queenside. I don't like this idea. There's an open b file. Queen b6, rook b8 is easy counterplay. What will the opponent do? While they're thinking, let's look at board 3. Okay, let's see. What defense was this? This was Nimzo Indian. Okay. And it turned into kind of like a Dutch defense. All right. So, question here for Iris is, does she play queen e8 or does she put the knight back on f6? If we play queen e8, I really like this idea because now we're threatening moves like e5, e4. There's a king back there, you know? So I like queen e8. Also, I like queen e8 because this type of move just feels natural in these structures anyways, because we're trying to go over to the king side because of our pawn structure, right? We have more space over there. We want to play g5 and g4 and stretch over there. Moves like b6, bishop b7, you know? And excellent. She found this queen e8. Okay. So now, let's see, will she go right away with e5 next turn? Or maybe will she play b6 and bishop b7, also a good idea. And what does the opponent even do here? Maybe do they play e3 and just try to get their pieces out, castle, pawn e3, bishop d3. Just try to hold the line and play safe and break later with e4. That looks pretty good for white. So will they see this? We could also possibly play pawn d6 and then e5. I feel like we could just play e5 right away if we're going to do that. So it's either e5 right away, we have h6 and g5, or we have b6 and bishop b7. 3 possible plans. She could also go for this double pawn on c4. Maybe she's considering something like b6 c5 to lock the pawn onto c4. And then maybe bishop a6, knight c6, knight a5, ideas like this. Since this was a Nimzo, I feel like that might be the plan that she's going for. This feels more natural to a Nimzo Indian player to go for these blockading the c-pawn and then attack it with bishop a6, knight c6, knight a5 type plans. But she goes for d6, showing that she's going for e5 soon. So, okay, this is going to be a solid game. I like her position, though. Knight c6, maybe bishop d7 here, and then push on to e5. Or maybe just knight c6 and push e5 and leave the bishop back on c8. Yeah, I like what Irish is doing. Let's take a look at board 2. This game has gone to the middle game here. Okay, b3 was first. Just going through this game real quick. Okay. Is Nathaniel in trouble? No, he's going to be all right because he's got knight to e1. So his knight's not in any bad condition. The problem, though, is that after something like knight e1, the opponent will take, and then we take back with the knight. And then now after that, there's pawn takes b3, and then pawn takes, and they have control of the a file. This is not going to lead to checkmate or anything, but this will allow the opponent a way to start attacking us with moves like rook a2 and somehow getting all the pieces in. Bishop f6, stack the rooks on the a file, start to push the pawns. They're going to find a way to activate their pieces. So what do we do here as white? Once again, I'm really liking our dark square bishops that we've been having in our games. This bishop on b2 has a nice plan, possibly looking at g7, but the idea, though, is how do we stop bishop f6? I don't know, but the best piece I like for white right now is that dark square bishop. And they don't go for this idea to take on b3. Very interesting. So what do we do here? Let's say we play... Can we play pawn a3 here? Is that too crazy? Yeah, that was a little bit too crazy. So let's see. Pawn takes. Pretty much forced. And then the opponent's got... what would they play here? You've got a pawn takes. They take. Okay. We do bishop takes. To keep our bishop's line open, we don't want to do pawn takes, and then it's going to be closed after a move like knight d5. So very good by Nathaniel here. Keeping up those lines. Okay. But then maybe e5. Okay. Bishop a1. Bishop b2. I like bishop a1 there because that allowed us to put our queen on b2 and put up some pressure on the queen side or the king side just in case. Maybe we had like these crazy ideas of f4 eventually. I don't know. But we wanted to keep that as a possibility. Now there's a really big threat, knight d3 coming. What do we do? Can we just take on e5? Take on e5, knight d3, and then we're sad, so that doesn't work. What do we do? Can we sack? Can we do a rook takes knight, bishop takes, knight e4? And we have a great knight, but we also don't have anything to do with it, so that doesn't work. I really don't want to play a move like knight e1, but maybe that's all we've got. Tough position. I don't like what white did here. Maybe he was forced. I don't know. I like bishop takes. Maybe bishop a1 was the move. How can we hang on? What do we do? Do we play bishop c3? No, but then they have knight from b4 to d3. This is a tough position. Do we do queen f5? I like queen f5. Okay, knight e1. This stops the threat, but then here comes a rook to d8. But then we have bishop takes. No, but then they have the same thing. Okay, so they're giving us time to breathe. Can we just get out there with queen f5 now? But then there's g6. We don't have any moves at him. We can't go queen a2, queen a1, queen c2. We can't do anything. We play e4? I don't know. What do we play, f4 here? That feels wrong. I don't know. This is tough. Okay, I don't like white's position. Let's see. Hopefully Nathaniel can find a way to draw this. Let's take a look at board 1. Okay, so what was this opening? Sicilian again. Okay, so Roman's game was Sicilian. Let's look in like black is doing. Sadly, black is doing great here from my perspective. I'm expecting them to put pressure on c2 with moves like b4. So b4, the knight will most likely go to e2. No? Can the knight go to d4 because of the x-ray? No, because the queen takes wherever it goes. Okay, so we got to go back to e2, but then there's e5. Do we have some kind of in-between move? Can we play e5? Pawn takes, queen takes our knight, and then we're sad? Doesn't work. Do we have like rook a? Okay, he goes for d5. Knight takes, pawn takes, queen takes. Then we have queen e7. Okay, this position is working. Can they play e5 here? They're trying to kick the knight so that they can take on c2. Or should they just capture on d5, pawn takes, and then like rook from f to e8? And just keep up the pressure on c2. But then the problem is, how do they get rid of our knight on d4? Moves like queen g5. Okay, they take. Pawn takes forced. Okay, rook from... Okay, we talked about this. I'm thinking now about moves like queen g5. This is a pattern that was once played against me. The idea is now knight to f5. But the problem is this bishop. So we can assume that actually here, Roman might be about to sacrifice. He might be thinking rook from a1 to a7 and then just chop this bishop, threatening, oh, there we go, right? He wants to play this idea queen to g5 and knight to f5. The opponent should not allow this, something like rook c7. That bishop is a very valuable defender, stopping knight f5. So let's see, rook c7, what do we do then? Then we can play like pawn to b3 to remove the queen as the defender. The queen goes to c5. Do we have anything after? The opponent's finding all the good moves. This is not good. But we're still doing fine here. We can still play moves like rook from d to a1. Because now they can't do queen takes pawn on d5 because we do rook takes rook. And if after rook from d to a1 they take our rook, we can put our rook on a7 and renew the threat on the bishop. For example, if they just do nothing and we can take the rook, queen takes, then we have the stunning move, rook to a7, guarded by the x-ray from the queen. And if they take our rook, then we have knight anywhere check, and then queen takes queen, and we're winning. So I like what Roman has done. The opponent cannot play rook from e to c8 because that rook has a job to guard on e7. But can he play that because our queen also has a job to guard the knight? So maybe rook from e to c8 works. Very interesting position. Rook from e to c8. Can white take on e7? Queen takes knight. Queen takes d6. And then queen goes back to guard the rook. No, that doesn't work. I still really like how Roman's playing. He's playing actively here. And the opponent is nervous about playing rook from e to c8 because it unprotects the pawn on e7. but our pawn is still hanging on d4 or d5, I mean. So once again, crazy position. What do we play after rook c8? Do we have this idea of like h4, h5, h6? I don't know. But so let's say rook c8, h4, they take on d5. What can we do then? I feel like we still can't take on e7. So rook from e to c8. Let's say we play rook from a to a5 to guard the pawn. And then an idea like h4, h5, h6. I like this. Maybe the opponent has found this and that's why they haven't played this, but rook from a1 to a5 looks really strong next to guard the pawn and to give us time to play an idea like h4, h5. So we're going to see what the opponent does. Let's take a look back at board 4. So opposite color bishops in the middle game actually favors the attacker. Whoever attacks will win. Because let's say that Asish finds a way to put lots of pressure on the dark color squares like he's doing. For example, he's got great pressure on b2. His dark square bishop is also aiming at c3 and b2, right? The rook on d6 can swing over at any time. With all this pressure on the dark squares, we have 4 attackers, the 2 rooks, the queen, and the bishop. But at any given time, the white pieces only have the 2 rooks and the queen because the light square piece cannot be involved in a dark square battle. So in the middle game, the opposite color bishop always favors the attacker. So the only way the opponent has a chance here is to somehow find a way to find a light square target. For example, maybe d5. But I don't see d5 ever being a problem since we can just push on d6 or d4. And then maybe they can find a way to play like bishop back to c2 and then queen d3 and aiming at h7. But at the same time, we always have pawn g6. So I'm not afraid of anything they do here. The c should just play rook from b to d8. And our pawns are pushing. They've got to move their bishop again after that. This looks great for black. Rook from b to d8. That way we're not pinned. Can we play queen takes b2? No, I think rook to d8 was the better move. Yep, okay. So now the bishop has to run. Where does it go? Let's say it goes back to b1, trying to play queen c2 like we talked about. But even so, there's nothing left. They go back there. Okay, so e4 is going to hurt. Excellent. Okay, after e4, the bishop goes wherever. And then we have pawn to d4, and white's in trouble. We're having lots of pressure on the dark squares. Our rooks are perfect. We have tons of space. Wow, yeah, this is a nice position. White's in big trouble. Black is winning. Okay, let's take a look back at board 3. We talked about Iris's plan was to play e5, and she did that. She's also up on time, so this is great. But what do we do next? We play e5, and we have lots of space. But winning on space is hard because the opponent's not just going to resign. So Iris has to somehow turn this space into an attacking position. So she has to open up these lines at the right time. I'm looking at possibly opening up the e file as the best choice because that brings us to hit the pawn on e3 if it stays there. Maybe queen e7 and then rook from a to e8. And then captures on d4 will open up our lines that way. The opponent, though, has played c5. Do we just capture here? Why do they play this c5? Should we take on d4 first? Interesting position. I don't like c5. I see why they did it, at least. They want to try and open up the position for their two bishops. But at the same time, they're giving themselves permanent weaknesses on c5. So let's say we take on c5. What do? They play check. We go king h8. Then what? Right? It's like, okay, what? We can take the bishop, but we also don't have to take the bishop. So I don't see the purpose of c5. What if we take on d4 and then we take on c5 and trade the pieces off, and then they've got problems on those dark squares? I don't know. I feel like Irish is better here. I would like to see her take on c5. She could also play bishop c6, but takes on c5 looks the best to me. Okay, and what does the opponent do here? Bishop c4. Is that why they played c5? They wanted to say check. They're not playing immediately, so they just had an idea and went with it. I'm hearing a lot of moves go off. I'm going to check. Okay, board 2. Oh, no, we lost on board 2. We had no space. He tried for some dangerous ideas, sacked a piece. Noble, but didn't work out. Tough position. Okay, let's look back at... okay, so board 1, Asish is winning. He's up on time now. The opponent has 1 minute, less than a minute left.
Roman or Asish?
Asish on board 4.
Board 4, okay.
What does he play here? I like the move queen b4. Oh, wait, it's the opponent's turn. My bad. But if it was our turn, queen b4, I feel like in a fast game, they might blunder and play pawn a6. And then we could play queen e1 checkmate. But the opponent's turn, they take our pawn. What do we do now? Let's say, can we pin them? I like that. Queen a1. What do they play now? Okay, we could take the pawn. And we can threaten checkmate. Will they find it? Okay, king up. King up, bishop check, pawn up. Yeah, we're fine. We've got that pass pawn, like you were saying, Adam. In the end game, that pawn matches the color of the bishop. The only problem, though, is how do we push the pawn on the light square? Right? The bishop can just sit on a4 forever. But maybe we can find a way to break in. Let's see. Do we now have bishop d4? Is that winning? How can they block it? I don't see anything. That's game over. So how many points will Asish have? Queen takes, and he's going to find a way to win somehow. Let's see. What's the right move, though? Do we play a5 here? h5, okay. Maybe the opponent now plays queen d5, threatening queen takes pawn, because the pawn on g6 was pinned. What do we do here? I feel like we should still play it. Yeah, there you go. a5, bishop down. Okay, now this is starting to get a little annoying. But what do we do? King over. Okay, push the pawn. a4. a4, a4. Come on. g4. g4, though. Can they play... Oh, did they lose now? Pawn check, bishop check. Queen check is mate. Yeah. Very nice. Okay, so that's a point for us on board 4.
All right.
Okay, so far we split. Back to, let's see. So quick update on board 1. His rook was good. They queen traded. Interesting endgame. First thoughts from this endgame. White is slightly better because our pawn's running first. Now, their pawn is also running, and our king is cut. So interesting. Maybe a draw. Who knows? I feel like a draw would be a fair result. I wouldn't be mad at a draw here. But I know Roman wants to win this. So I could see maybe... But there's a problem, though. The king is coming to g5, f4, g3. Is that too slow? He just goes with the pawn push. Black should push his pawn as well. Good. Okay, so what does white do now? Do we play rook a4, rook a5? Pawn push again. Rook takes rook, pawn push, king goes down. We're okay. Okay. But now the pawn goes. Uh-oh. A little scary. Can we push? Okay. What do we do here? King over? Then king f5. That was a good move. That was a very good move. Push? Okay, they're going to push. Are we fast enough, though? Oh, no, we're not fast enough. Okay, so we're going to lose this game because if we play pawn push, then rook takes. If we take the rook, then pawn takes rook. And there's going to queen before us. I'm not sure what the mistake was in there. I think he still had a chance for a draw. Who knows? Tough in-game. Really hard to play that. But let's take a look back at board 3 because Iris is fighting. She's got a really solid chance. Now, I want her here. Ooh, what can she do? Can she play queen e8? I was thinking at first that I wanted her to play queen e7, but I didn't see that the knight was hanging. But is the knight hanging? Because we have queen e3 check to win the bishop, but then they have... Yeah, then we're losing because queen g6, queen h6, and the knight gets in, and that's really ugly. What do we have? Queen e8 here? Queen e8, pawn takes g5. Then we have pawn f4. Oh, but then they can take it because the queen's guarded. Queen e8, though, is forced. Gotta play queen e8. If we take the pawn, then queen takes knight, and then queen check, king over, queen takes bishop, and then queen g6, queen h6, and the knight comes in. Not looking good. Oh, no! She probably didn't see it. So queen takes knight here by the opponent. Should win the game. Queen check. King over. Takes the bishop. Or okay, they could just do knight f2 here. Yeah. Tough battle by Iris. I like the plan that she found. She wanted to go for e5. She just never got her rook into play. I was hoping that she would have played like rook to a to e8. I'm not sure what the right timing would have been for that, but somehow we could have found a way to get the rook in. Let's see, do we have any other games going? All the other games are finished. Okay, so we're just hoping she can pull a draw from this. Now, we're not completely lost. We have bishop c6 and rook g6. Wait, that's not winning, right? Is that winning? Rook c6 or rook g6 next turn? Okay, they found that. So king somewhere and put the rook on g8. Okay, she's just playing fast. If we can get a rook on the g file, this might turn around. Okay, rook somewhere. Oh no, our queen's trapped. No. Okay, well, we fought hard. Close game, Bishop takes something. Bishop b1. Bishop somewhere. The opponent's extremely low on time. Bishop b1. Bishop f1. Queen somewhere. Queen b2. Oh, she barely had enough time for that. Move quickly. Oh, she's so nervous. Okay, rook over. Rook over. Oh, rook over was good. Rook over and then pawn to f3, I think was winning maybe. Oh, man. Exciting game, though. Can she win on time is our last hope. Then rook or queen down is mate. Oh, man. Yeah, tough game. So what was the overall score for that round? We only got a point there.
Yeah, so now it's 6.5 New York, 5.5 Missouri.
Okay, so we need 1 point. 1 point from the last round, and we can clinch the playoffs. But to win this match, we need 3 points in the last round. So we'll see. The last round will be the fairest of the rounds because each of the boards has to play their exact mirror. So I'm hoping that Iris can win that matchup. I'm hoping that Asish can win his as well. And then the top two can at least split. Those are going to be some tough matches for them. But our bottom boards, this is their chance.
Is the FIDE Master kind of about the same as the National Master for USCF? Or
FIDE Master is stronger than a National Master. I'd say National Master is like the Gateway Master, the lowest of them. And then after that is FIDE, and then International, and then Grandmaster.
Oh, okay.
Because to get rating points in FIDE is a little bit harder than to get points in USCF. Actually, a lot harder. But yeah, a FIDE Master is I'd say about a class or so different than a National Master, if we're talking about the lowest possible rank of each. Maybe 100 or 150 points. Possibly even 200 points at maximum. But okay, the last round has begun for boards 2, 3, and 4. Let's take a look at board 2 here. They played a delayed Dutch defense, which some are saying is the correct way to play it. Reasoning being because after pawn f5, then white has all these crazy options that you have to study for, and it's just a headache. So a lot of players are just playing the French defense. That way they don't have to deal with the moves like e4, which is a fun gambit. I would highly recommend to play e4 versus the Dutch. Very fun. Or you could play crazy moves like g4 or like h3 and g4. There's all these moves you have to study if you want to play f5 on the first turn. So e6 to get rid of all this theory, and then now we're into a Dutch defense, and it looks good for black. So, okay, white wants to play e4. We do not want white to play e4. So what do we play here? Do we play h6? h6 takes, the bishop has to run. If they take our knight, then queen takes knight. If they play e4, then castle, or do we take? So e4 here by the opponent. They don't take. So what do we do? Interesting. e4 is coming. Do we play bishop e4? That's a funny move. Castle, I like castle. After e4 captures, bishop takes. But then what? Do we take, and then like knight c6? I don't know. What do we do? Do we play g4 and g5? Plus, after e4, maybe we could play f4. I like G5 here. Let's see, does Nathaniel play G5? I feel like that's on theme with his play style. The moves I could see him playing. Okay, D6. He wants to play knight D7 and E5. Will he play F4 here? Taking on E4 would now be incorrect since the pawn on E6 would then be backwards. So F4 is correct. But then after E5, what do we do? So will he play knight D7? I don't know. Knight D7 captures, pawn takes. Then rook E8. I was hoping he played G5 last turn because after G5, then E4, then he plays pawn to G4 here. And he's got some great in-between moves, and his bishop is looking excellent on that diagonal. Okay, what does he play? He hasn't played anything. Oh, knight D7. Okay, I like that move. I think the opponent should play rook from A to E1. Rook from F to E1 is kind of suspicious, though, because we have good pressure on the F file. Maybe F2 becomes a problem someday because the queen has to protect on E4. Because of this, maybe can we play G5? Is it the right time? Or should we play rook E8? Or do we take on E4 twice and then we play E4 or E5? Because after E5, pawn takes, knight takes. Can the knight take? We have queen F2 check, and then we have a crazy game. Lots of options. I feel like the most natural move is just like rook from A to E8 and then to go for those ideas. I can also see G5 here. No, I like rook E8 the most because after G5, then pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn. And then there's moves like queen E7, and then they're playing really actively, and I don't like that. So rook E8. Rook E8 looks best to me. What will Nathaniel play? We'll wait to see. Let's take a look back at board 3. So first impressions, I really like Irish's position again. The opponent waited to castle for such a long time. What do you think? Why did the opponent wait to castle for so long, Adam? What were they afraid of? Any ideas?
I don't know, does E5 do anything?
E5 does a whole lot. What's it trying to do?
It kicks the knight out.
Which is guarding?
H7.
Okay, so then our bishop is awake, looking at H7. Here comes queen H5, and we're in business. Rook from E to E3, and rook's coming over. If white plays E5, black is losing instantly. There's no checkmate or anything, but white has an excellent position because of all their attack lines. And that is pretty much just the goal of taking space because we want to turn it into something that we can use tactically. So let's say the opponent sees this idea and recognizes the strength of this bishop on D3. And they play a move like E5, trying to close the diagonal forever. At first, this also seems like a great idea. But E5 or pawn E5 allows us to play knight F5. And then we have rook lift, rook G3, and lots of problems. And wow, they've actually allowed us to play this E5. And you know what's worse? They've just allowed a tactic. This is game over because E5, pawn takes, the knight's got to go somewhere. Which the pawn on F7 is now a weakness because there's one attacker, one defender. The king is the only guardian of F7 and H7. So after all this, we play E5, kick the knight. The knight goes somewhere like E8 or D5, whatever. Either one is still winning. We play bishop takes H7. right? Bishop takes h7, the king's got to take. We play queen h5 check. The king goes back to g8. Queen f7 check. The king's on h8. And somehow we've got to find a way to play rook check. If we can say rook check, we win the game. It looks winning to me. Maybe we also have knight takes e6, which hits the queen and it hits g7, if you can see all that. But e5 is the move. If Iris plays e5, I'm really, really liking her chances. Maybe black will play knight d5 instead of taking. That looks to be the best idea. But still, that bishop on d3 is so excellent after pawn e5.
How does the queen take on h7?
So e5, let's say pawn takes, and now the knight's in trouble on f6. The knight's got to move to d5, right? And then we do bishop takes h7, I mean. So bishop takes h7, the king takes, and then we do queen h5 check. Because now the king's got to go back to g8, and then we have queen f7 check. Then the king goes to h8, and now we're looking for somebody to say check, right? We need rook check somehow. Rook lift, someone's got to get in there. But then I also saw that we have knight takes e6 after all that, which hits the queen on c7, and it threatens queen g7 checkmate. So if we play e5, if they take the pawn, that's losing. She went back to f3. Why did she do this? I don't like this move. I feel like she had to play e5. Maybe she doesn't like... What is she afraid of? After e5, knight d5. Was she concerned that her knight was defenseless on d4 after pawn takes? There's an x-ray. Let's see, e5, maybe is there queen c5? Was she afraid? I'm not sure. But I definitely feel like e5 was the chance. The knight is now blocking the queen from going to h5, so there's no bishop h7 tactics. There's also no fun on the f file with the f7 ideas because they just undefended it with rook from f to d8. I still like her position, but she's got to play e5. If she doesn't play e5, then black will somehow find a way to get in here with like knight c5 and pawn d5 and okay, h6. She's got a chance. Pawn e5, Iris. You can do it. We got to open up our bishops. Open up the attack lines for the heavy pieces. Right now, the pawns are in the way. Pawn e5. Pawn f5? No, then they have pawn e5 themselves. Or maybe knight e5. Pawn e5 is the only move. Will she see it? While she's looking for pawn e5, let's take a look now at board 4 because Asish is attacking. The opponent's king is in trouble. The problem, though, is how do we get our rook to h3? That's what he's looking for. Before he played f4, I was considering maybe he had pawn g4, then rook d3, then rook h3. Maybe that was too slow, though. He just goes for immediate f4. This puts pressure on the pawn. Capture, then rook g8. Looks good for black. Maybe he doesn't want to capture back. Does he want to play e5 after they capture? I don't see the purpose of this one. So, interesting position. How does he get in after pawn takes, rook g8? Rook d3, then rook h3? But then there's rook g7. Looks like black will be able to hold this. But Asish is fighting. He's up on time, and the opponent has to play accurately to survive here. So I would still give white the advantage. Two equally matched players here. The one who's attacking is always better. Especially since he's almost double his opponent's time. So Asish has got the advantage. I'm not sure how he finds a way in, but I would say advantage white. Let's take a look back at board 3. Okay, great. Good news, Adam. She found e5. She's winning. What does she play here? Is the knight stuck? Because she just play h3, winning the game. h3. Does that win? The knight can't go anywhere. Do they take on e5 with some tactics? Doesn't look like that wins. So yeah, h3. h3, game over. She's double checking, triple checking, quadruple checking. She's going to win her first game on the big stage, Adam. She's kind of nervous. Let's see. Will she find h3? No? What was wrong with h3? Maybe did I miss something? h3, knight takes pawn, knight takes knight, knight takes, queen takes, rook takes, bishop. I don't see it. So h3, was there some kind of, maybe, I don't know. Maybe I missed something. We'll have to check with an engine. But just first looks, by looking at it for a couple seconds, h3 looked good. Now, if we don't play h3, a move like bishop e4 is also pretty good. Iris really, really, really wants to play queen e4. And that queen now will be perfectly positioned to assist on the queen side. Or on the king side, I mean. Attacking the knight on g4. Also looking for possible g4, g5 ideas after the light square bishop is gone, because then there's no suspicion. So let's see, what does the opponent play? Will they play knight c5 here? Either way, I'm happy because this is buying Iris more time to find h3. I know she's going to see it. There's no way she missed it. Maybe the opponent has to play h5 to give the knight room to run away to h6. But even so, after h3, knight h6, and bishop takes knight, that's still so ugly for the opponent. So we'll check back in with Iris later. Looks like she's still winning. I'm going to take a look at board 1. We haven't seen his game all round. His game started off okay. The Albin counter gambit. He played this in one of the earlier matches and had a very exciting, dynamic game in perfect Roman style. But let's see how this game turned out. Early queen trade. I know he hated that one, but Black's doing well here. Okay. And I like Black's position. Number one, we're making threats. We want to do bishop takes knight and take on e3. Right? So that's the first question to White is, what do you do about this? Question number 2 is, I'm going to bring more pressure. How do you respond if I play bishop c5? Right? And then, first of all, how do you protect on e3? Right? Do you play king d2? Right? And then maybe after king d2, I've got rook d8 check. Do you play rook e1? After rook e1, then maybe I've got bishop c5, or maybe I've got knight to d3. Lots of possibilities here. I really like Black's position, but I want to see, how does he develop his last two pieces? The bishop on f8 and the rook on h8 have to join the party. Once they can get in the fight, then Black is clearly better. We're not even down material. It started off as a gambit, but we won our pawn back. And now we have this great tactical target on e3. So I can expect him to do moves like bishop c5. But if bishop c5, does the opponent have g4 because they're trying to remove the defender of g7? So that is a concern. What do we do about this? We can't play pawn g6 because then there's knight f6 hitting the rook and the bishop. So what to do here? Bishop c5. Now, after g4, we have knight f3. So after b4, what do we do? The opponent plays this extremely fast as well. We can't go to b6 because there's c5. I fear that we have to go back to f8. King takes bishop. Oh, well, then we have bishop takes pawn. If they do pawn takes c5, then we go back to e4? Or do we go to b3 to hit the pawn on c4? Interesting tactics. I think we should go back to b3 to hit the pawn on c4. Okay, great. Roman's winning. He's going to get at least a pawn from this somehow. So let's take a look back at board 3 here. Let's see. So everything's open. Okay, it's time to bring the queen in, Iris. I want to save the bishop, though. I feel like we don't have time. I want to play queen h5. Queen h5. And then somehow we're winning this game. If they take our bishop, we can put our knight on e4 forever. It can't be touched. They take, okay, queen takes pawn. Okay. I hope she doesn't trade queens, though. I really like the attacking position. Something like knight e4, stack the rooks up and invade. Looks like the quickest win. The opponent looks like they should play bishop f6. Bishop f6. Queen takes pawn on e6. Still very messy, though. I like Iris's position. What does the opponent do? Okay, got to take the pawn. And then what? Queen f7? Then we take on... No, that's so messy. Queen e6, king h8. Then rook takes bishop?
It's like Panda
also messy. That doesn't...
I think Panda got a checkmate.
Oh, he won?
Yeah. All right.
Wow. So the opponent didn't go for this rook g8, rook g7 idea. I thought the opponent was solid after that. Interesting. Well, good for us, though. That's 1 point. We need 2 more from this round to win this match. Let's take a look at board 2. It looks like Nathaniel's going to give us one of those points, Adam. I'm really liking his position. A little suspicious, though. But I think he's going to pull through. The opponent's going to play knight. Well, he can't play the knight to f3 because queen g4 check wins the knight off of him. He wants to move his knight really bad, though, because the h-file is the opponent's only chance to win. But if they can't move the knight, then what do they do? Also, black is threatening knight takes pawn. So what do you play? Pawn f3? Can't do that because queen e2. Check. Where's the king go? I don't know. Okay, so can we just take on g4? Knight takes pawn. Then there's knight f3. Very interesting game. I like that move. That was an excellent first move. But now there's pawn f3. They don't care about the pawn. Let's see. What do we do? Do we play... I like that. Force the trade. Okay. If rook e1, we have knight f2. We also have knight c3 to hit on a4. Check. King up. Takes. Okay. Takes. This looks winning for black. King e5. King d4. This looks good. Knight coming in. What do we play? That's a tough one. I agree. Looks fine. Rook c6. Knight in. Okay. Can we go king up? King up. Knight e6. No. Okay. Now rook c6 hits both pawns. But then we can run. Do we just drop the pawn and say whatever? Or maybe, okay, What do we do here? King up. But then there's... Messy, messy, messy. Okay, pawn up. I think we should... Oh, no! We lost our rook. Oh, no. Okay, so we have to have the other two boards win. Take a look back at board 1. Did he have h4 or h5 there? h5, the bishop would have went back to h3. Nothing special. What do we do? He is winning. He is winning. He should not allow g4. So g5 looks, or h5 looks good here to stop those pawns from moving like that. This endgame is going to take some skill for sure, but h5 is the right start. But then he has knight g3. Maybe h5 is not the right start. What do we do? But he can't play knight g3 because we take on h4. So I do like h5. Maybe he could... Okay, that's a good move as well. Trying to remove the defender of the pawn on h4. This pretty much forces some kind of trade. A step in the right direction. It's going to be a hard game, though. I'm going to take a quick look at board 3. So, all right. Iris is low on time. Not a good sign, but her position is better. Hopefully she's been looking and she's got a clear plan. I'm liking the idea of rook f7 at the right time. She's trying to put her knight on h5 is what she just did. What will black do? Looks like black should play rook takes rook to get the rook off of the f file. And then something like bishop f6, maybe? But it's hard to play this as black. The knight is so good. So we're really counting on Iris here. She's got to get her win for this match. It looks like she might be able to pull through. At worst, it looks like she's going to get a draw because she's a pawn up. She can't lose except on time, so she's got to play fast. Taking a quick look back at board 1. The opponent did not trade. The opponent decided just to give up the pawn because trading would have been in black's favor, but also winning a pawn is in black's favor. So what's going on here? He's going to get his own pawn. What did he do? He moved the knight there? Was there a way? Yeah, okay, so Roman could have played bishop to g3, but missed it. Okay, so now he's in some trouble. What does he play here? Ooh, this is big trouble, because there's going to be bishop check, move the king over to a8, and then bishop back, threatening knight check. Does Roman here play something like g6? Oh, no, there's also pawn to g3. X-ray on the rook. So we have to check first. Rook f2 check. Roman, while he's figuring that out, let's take a look back at board 3. Okay, Iris down to less than a minute, but her position is excellent. Once again, what can she play? Does knight d6 work? Knight d6, the rook cannot take because rook e1. Knight d6 also threatens knight f7. Oh, wait, what is this? Knight takes h6, pawn takes... This is winning. Great job. Because knight f7's coming. If they play rook f8, then we have just like knight f5 and other ideas like rook up and check. Hmm. The opponent here will play rook f8. Do we have rook e8 there? Takes queen, takes king h7. Check, king takes check. No, we don't. But we are winning. And what is this? What is that? Okay, do we have knight? No, we don't. That move's going to make her think. What would I do real quick? Knight check, king over, knight check again. Okay, king over. Is this a forced draw? Or maybe she has queen g3? What a game. So king h8 forced. And then is queen g3 the only chance for a win? I feel like she might play knight f7. Being low on time. Okay, she goes for rook f1. Queen takes. Oh no, she can't actually take the bishop because of the mate on the back rank. Let's go for checks. Oh no, what do we have? What do we have? Okay, bishop takes pawn. Queen e6. Is this some sort of forced draw? Queen e6, real quick. Excellent. Okay, king h8, queen h3. Queen block. Okay, check again. h3. Queen block. Well, they block with the queen. That's all they got. Okay, b3. Excellent. Bishop d4. Take the pawn. Oh, never mind. We're going to get mated. Excellent. Nice. Okay. This is tough. Can she make a draw possibly? I don't know. There's blunder. Oh, they didn't blunder. Wow. Oh no, we blundered. That's mate. The opponent found some moves that made her think right when she was low on time. Tough. So I think if she would have played h3, she would have won that game. Interesting to see what the engine says. Also, e5 was the correct move, but maybe she played e5 too slow. I don't know. Let's take a look at board one. Roman is in a tough position as well. The opponent's bishops are doing excellent. These pawns are running. He's in danger of losing this game. Maybe the king should have stepped up to b6. Now the king is locked out forever. Threatening rook d4 or rook d5. Opponent finds it. Pawn up. Okay, what do we do here? Do we check? Okay, king over.
And it looks like Illinois won, so I guess it'll be tie breaks.
Yep. We at least have 6.5.
It's pretty close, though, Illinois and Pennsylvania. Illinois had 8.5 and Pennsylvania 7.5.
Ooh, so yeah, the amount of points we got this week will be just enough to clinch it. Tough match. Let's see, what state was this we're going against today? New York.
This is New York, yeah. You ready to suit up next week for the playoffs?
Yeah. I've been looking at my games to see what I could do different. But so far, it seems to be doing all right.
I think we kind of got bad luck on the interleague play stuff where they had us play outside our division because I always kind of thought like Seattle, New York, and St. Louis are the three kind of chess capitals. And
Hmm.
we played Washington, and then we played New York. So, and then while Illinois played, I think, Hawaii and Pennsylvania. So I think we kind of got the toughest two states probably.
Yeah. So interesting. Looks like Roman actually may have some chance here. Knight takes pawn, king c5. No chance. This is it. He gave it a nice try. In the game where he played rook to f1 earlier, he had bishop to g3, which would have stopped all the pain on c7, which caused the loss there. But that's a hard game. I don't know.
It was a tough round. Panda's the only one who got a win that
Yeah,
time.
tough round. Um, so we ended up with 6.5 to 9.5. We're going to playoffs guaranteed. So we're happy.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure us and Minnesota will get the playoff spots, and then Illinois might be a wild card. I'm not sure what the other divisions are doing. We'll have 2 playoff spots for each division, and then 2 wild card spots.